Hello, respected viewers. Today is the 29th of March. A traditional review of the events on the fronts of the Ukrainian war. We traditionally start with the Avdiivka direction, where our troops continue to attack the enemy's key strongholds. These are not just key strong points on the Donetsk front. These are the most important key defense points, the surrender of which would significantly weaken the ASU's position in the future, not only. In the Donetsk sector, these are Berdichi and Semyonovka. The enemy is desperately trying to drive our units out from the southern part of Semyonovka, where our troops behave settled down. He carries out one attack after another, but so far all his attempts have been in vain. By holding these positions, our troops are creating a very difficult situation for the enemy, including in Berdichi, where our troops are also trying to defeat the enemy and complete the liberation of this settlement in order to further on a broad front to seize control of this settlement, for which I'm certain there will a tremendously fierce battle, maybe not as harsh as Vyar, but the enemy should not lose it under any circumstances. This is key to all defense. I repeat this countless times. To all defense of all central Donbass. For the enemy, losing Ocheretin could become a catastrophe, just like the situation in the Chasov Yar area. The loss of Chasov Yar will become catastrophic. For the whole northern Donbass from the viewpoint of the Ukrainian armed forces, and because of this, it has been trying to oust us with counterattacks for the third day consecutively, throwing considerable forces and counterattacks on our positions, both on the hill and in the Ivanovsk area. However, all these forces result in significant personnel losses for the enemy. They are typically scattered and eradicated as they approach. Regardless, we have come so dangerously close to the enemy's main defense line that it has simply He can't do otherwise. He's throwing more and more forces into reckless suicidal attacks, depleting his already scant reserves. While the situation here is as it is, we can't advance yet because the enemy is desperately attacking us multiple times daily. However, I reiterate in principle, this might not be a bad thing for us. Let them drain their reserves here instead of us having to dig them out of trenches here. Despite the situation here being generally optimistic thus far, considering the enemy is actually suffering much more casualties here than we are. I dearly hope this continues to be the case. In other developments, our troops have achieved significant successes in the Novomykhailivka area. The enemy's defenses in the northern part of the settlement were breached. We have evidence suggesting that we have largely completed the liberation of the northern part and have nearly surrounded the enemy's positions in the western part of the settlement from 3 directions. The enemy is fighting hard to retain these western outskirts, but I think considering how there's a significant transition happening there, it's just a matter of days when we can entirely free Novomykhailivka and gradually expand our attack on the flanks and rear of enemy's Vuhledar formation. Also, our troops are keeping the enemy on their toes with various attacks in the region of Staromaisky, in the Zaporizhia sector, and offensive operations have begun again in the northern front, specifically the Kupinsk direction, the Senkivka area, but they are still primarily intended to distress the enemy. This is to ensure the enemy doesn't shift reserves from this direction to other sectors. Attacks with specific targets are also being conducted now in the Seversky sector, in the Lyman direction. Well, I can't help but mention the massive strike that our aerospace forces carried out last night primarily on the Ukrainian energy infrastructure. There were strikes on industrial facilities and military installations, but mostly it was the energy infrastructure that was hit. From what I can see, this has been very systematically planned over a long period of time. Gradually, all generating capacities are being destroyed, predominantly maneuvering capacities such as thermal power plants and hydroelectric power plants. Today, our forces struck the Severin hydroelectric power plant in Dnipropetrovsk, which is the medium Dnieper hydroelectric power plant. Strikes were also reported near the Kremenchuk hydroelectric power plant. I'm not sure if the power station itself was hit, near the Kaniv hydroelectric power station. And there were also strikes on the Kryvyi Rih thermal power plant. There's a lot of damage to the Pridneprovsk thermal power plant, including substations, especially the main substation in Europe, Western Ukraine. Its importance is undoubtedly no less, and most likely even more, than any thermal power plant or hydroelectric power plant in Ukraine. This is because the power flows that this substation in Western Ukraine can provide to maintain the energy system are equivalent to 3 1-gigawatt units of any nuclear power plant in Russia. Therefore, it needs to be taken down first, which is what our guys are doing. After all, it's not easy to take it down in one fell swoop.